Happy Sunday! Welcome back from church, everyone, and well, I hope it's as glorious a day as it is here because it's been sunny and pretty, and well, it hasn't started raining yet, but knowing this time of year, it probably will. It's been a bit of a quiet week in terms of the big events, I want to say. Not too much has been going on that most people are going to be following, but thankfully, we're not most people, so there's plenty for us to talk about because we're really weird. Of course, we're going to be talking about, well, I'll give you a quick preview. The Impact League, Get Rio, the Esports World Cups, teams that have been decided, a Nero CS article because honestly he makes the best Counter-Strike articles, I'm not going to lie. Quack, yours are in Swedish, so that to me, nonsense. His in English, they just win, I'm sorry. That's just a language diff. But yeah, we also got more coming from the internal shuffle and prospects of the week. Yeah, that's the full roster, I think, of topics coming up in this one. But first of all, the most important topic, Quack, how are you?
I'm all right. It was a hell of an evening last night, and yeah, this is another one of those. It's going to be another one of those episodes for me. uh,
It's an
but yeah,
hour delayed, then another
thankfully,
15 minutes delayed, just to make sure you get out of bed.
yeah, yeah. I was like at 11. I was like, yeah, we can record at 12, and then at 11:55, I was like, I hadn't even left the place I was at, and I was like brushing my teeth, like plus 15. um, but yeah, thankfully, I'm a channel member at KingT, which just means I'm just better than everyone else, so I can handle this pretty well.
That's fair enough, because yes, of course, channel members do get special perks. They get access to certain videos early, like the last episode of Double Swing, they got access to 24 hours early, I believe. Because as soon as it was up, just released it for members, because why not? And of course, they'll get access to special posts. They actually soon start getting voting rights on a project I'm working on. And you also get access to the monthly Q&A, where you can ask us questions about literally anything. Mostly it's going to be about CS, because you lot are here. But hey, if you want to ask us what our favourite colour socks are, you can. Uh, for me, it's black, but that's fine.
White.
Spoilers coming. Spoilers coming for the next episode. Obviously,
Yeah.
we're going to talk a lot about socks. Let's dive into our
Mm.
first topic. And for me, this was quite an important one. I wasn't able to watch as many of the Impact League games as I usually do, especially in EU, but I was able to track them in the background, make sure that the teams I hoped would be winning were winning, and we ended up with all of our teams qualified and the full list published. The most important region, of course, being EU. Now, EU, every season, let's be honest, we know there's one roster coming through. There's one roster, formerly known as Enigma Galaxy, currently playing under the brand Pigeons, which I don't think is actually a brand, it's just a current name they have. Don't think they've been picked up, which is a bit weird, considering, well, people who don't win every goddamn season of ESL Impact have been picked up. But they obviously went through 5-0, swept through, zero difficulty, and the other team that finished top of their group, if I'm not going crazy, it was the Navi Javelins. Yeah,
Hmm.
easily the second best women's team. The only team that's really given, I think, Enigma Galaxy a bit of a shake, like a moment, a real scary moment in one of these Impact League finals, like in the playoffs, all that
Mm.
stuff. It's usually an easy breezy walk in the park. So those were the top two. But then I didn't realize this. There was a playoff to determine the last two European teams. So when you initially look at it, you just see two groups. You know, the top team goes through straight away. But then second and third played like a cross-matched play-in bracket in which we saw Fearless Cheetahs play Big Equipa, and we saw Let Her Cook face. Oh God, who was it? Off the top of my head, I'm breaking it. I think it's
Guild.
Guild. It is Guild.
It
Yes,
was
you're
Guild.
right. Guild FE. And Bigger Keeper upset the odds and beat Fearless Cheetahs, which to me, I'm shocked. I'm really shocked because I thought Fearless Cheetahs were looking amazing in the regular season. I was able to catch one of their games and they looked really good. Bilger called a great game. The other players on the team really stepped up. But Bigger Keeper managed to upset them. And on the other side of things, Let Her Cook, I guess technically was an upset just based on seeding, but not so clear as to who was actually the better team if you watched or followed the season. Let Her Cook upset Guild FE, technically, to go through. But I want to focus in on, well, a topic that's often annoyed me about Impact. I want to see a promo, and I don't think it's that hard to do. Like a promotional video hyping up the finals, because we never really see much out of this ESL Impact sort of media group. It's just tweets with stock images and backgrounds and nothing else. And that's been kind of frustrating for me. Because if you want the viewership to grow, throwing $250,000 at it every season or whatever the actual prize pool is isn't really enough. It's nice for the players to be able to support them and their teams, but if you're not, as an org, getting anything out of it in terms of like media campaigns or promotional material from the players being recorded, doing interviews or anything like that, it just seems a bit silly and not really forward thinking or future thinking. Like, it's not future proof to approach a season this way. So I've been really frustrated about that. And hopefully we can actually see something done for this one. Because come on, Pigeons, the Enigma Galaxy core, plus Zaz, which is a crazy team, are set to win their 5th in a row. That's ridiculous. How can there not be some sort of mini documentary about them? This would be the perfect time to do it. Quack, have you got any takes on this?
No, that would be amazing to see. I think very much like I'm actually surprised that no other that no other TOs swooped in and tried to outcompete the ESL Impact League, because I really feel like it wouldn't be that hard. Like basically all of the Impact teams with like that play for tier 1 organizations, they show up when Tradeit offer them like a prize pool of $1,000 and some in-game items.
Yeah.
And then all of them show up and battle it out. They all, like, most of them play the cash cups, which is even less. And so like I'm always, and then ESL, like I feel like they have a good studio setup for the games, and well, actually for the mid-season games it's mostly casters you've mostly never heard of doing casts out of their bedroom, but like for the playoffs at least it's like it's a big and proper thing, which is nice.
Yeah.
But as like a proper studio setup. But I feel like it could be so much more promotion. Same goes for the teams themselves, to be honest, but there could be so much more promotion, there could be so much more leaning into this, that I'm just surprised that like Blast haven't come out with their own Impact League.
Honestly. Yeah, with the way they have tried to do, like, especially like shoulder content, you probably could. And I think, honestly, I've had this vision in my mind for like the simplest promo you can do. It lasts like 30 seconds, and you have like, I'm sure you've seen this style of promo done before, but you have like players like entering the interview room, sitting down, like shots of different players sitting down. And you hear the interviewer voice ask one time the one question: is there any player you're afraid of when you enter the server? And they all give like names, or they all have some idea, and then you just cut to the best player in the league. I'd hope Ana, but you could have some other like player who's been top of the like sort of ratings. Kyosa's been absolutely nuts for Bigger Keeper this season, an absolute revelation. Like, she was kind of not really that noticeable in G2 Oya, I think it was called, but she's been great on this Bigger Keeper team. Like, and they just music cut, dead stare, no one. And then that's how you hype it up. Like, you get a proper hype fucking intro like that, someone's gonna give a shit. But if you're giving me is, oh, B-Dog and Lucy Loose on the poster for the talent, who gives a fuck? No offense to them. Yeah. They're really good at what they do, but that doesn't matter. No one cares. You're still going to average 1.6k viewers, 80 if fucking Gaules shows up, but like, realistically 1.6k viewers on most of the finals until the very last second. It's not going to do enough. So I think actually having players involved in promotional materials would be a big start, but it seems impossible to get that done for Impact League. Instead, we just get borderline nothing. To get away from this side of things, to talk about the players, because I did briefly just mention Kyosa, who was actually amazing this season. It's one of the big reasons why Fearless Cheetahs weren't able to come through, who are, for my money, the third best women's team. Like, probably in terms of the squads coming into the season, I had them as the third. Clearly, Bigger Keeper surpassed them, I think. But they were a team where I thought, Bigger Keeper, if I look at the other matchups, the teams who could have been at the play-in, Let Her Cook, Guild FE, they win both those games. They win both those games. So the fact that Bigger Keep had a blip in their season to go 3-2, it's just entirely why. I think it's a head-to-head matchup thing as well, the reason they faced them, because they had better round differential than Guild FE. But Guild FE beat them head-to-head. That's why it ended up that way. Bit disappointing, so I would really like to see Fearless Cheetahs go through. On that note, actually, there's a tiebreaker today to decide the replacement team in case someone's visas get fucked up, because the finals are in Dallas. Things happen. So yeah, there'll be a Guild FE versus Fearless Cheetahs game today.
I looked at that and I'm thinking like this replacement game doesn't even matter because Fearless Cheetahs are the ones with 5 Russians who are going to have visa issues going into
True.
Dallas. So Guild either way. So
True, there's a good chance it's them. But
yeah,
there's two Russians on Pigeons. Maybe they got a better. Maybe they organize themselves better because they have an org and they don't have to just use their coach and themselves to do it. That's always a factor. Things can happen, so it will be played out. I'm assuming at their highest level. Uh, but
should be
it's a
fine.
bit weird
Uh,
to think Phyllis Cheetahs have got a better chance of getting visas, considering. Yeah, it's a bit odd.
yeah, it's been a good season. I've obviously mostly kept an eye on, almost entirely only kept an eye on the one group because that's where all 5 of the Swedish players ended up, which was
Okay.
a bit of a shame. But yeah, all 5 of the teams with one Swedish player each ended up in Group A. So I've only watched Group A basically. But I ended up casting a bunch of these games, and Big Equipa, they obviously had a very, very close game against Pigeons. The
Hmm.
3 mapper and the final map ended in overtime, and I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Um, but I think there's a lot of teams to talk about here because I think the one that deserves a big shout, and I'm actually like, I'm happy that we have, for the first time ever, we have Swedes in the Impact League final, and of course it's Zas and Giuliano, because who else would it be? Um, But I was actually really sad that Guild lost against Lettercook because Guild this year, like at the start of the season, they made one roster move, and like I would have thought these guys are going to be last again. Like they're going to be last once again because last season I think they ended up last in the group or like second to last. And I was like, these guys are going to be they're going to be competing with Astralis for the bottom of the group. But just through happenstance, I happened to be watching Guild a lot. I casted a lot of their games because that was just the my lot in the casting game. And through just the one move of picking up D7, who
Hmm.
got benched if in like I think she would have been benched for Giuliano to come into Big Equipa.
Yeah.
Just through signing D7, Guild have actually had a very, very, very strong season. They actually beat Big Equipa. They beat NIP Impact, which I wouldn't have seen coming. And I was kind of hyped. Could have been the group winner had they actually won the game against Pigeons. Then they would have won the group and gone straight to finals. So they like in that final round, they'd actually scheduled it pretty much perfectly because the top 2 teams were battling for the top spot. The third and fourth team were battling for the play-in spot, and the bottom 2 teams were battling for not being last place. So they actually happened to schedule the round robin very well in that regard. But yeah, Guild deserve a huge shout in my opinion. Every player played really well. Like I said, I've kept more of an eye on them than I have the other players since I've just happened to be watching their games. But D7 was a really, really big player, like a bit of a revelation. The rest, their stats don't really shine, but I remember there were some games where Kit Kat was incredibly clutch. Nia, I think, played a very good level. She's sort of a bit of a supportive element mostly. She plays the anchor positions, and she played that role very well, I think. Yeah, all of them. Anna, I found out Anna is apparently at the start of the season. I found out Anna is IGLing as well as opping, which is the Latvian Anna,
Yeah.
um, which is just incredibly well done. I just think Guild deserve a big shout here, and I'm excited to see what they can do. I mean, I don't hope for visa issues, but if there is a visa issue or something, I do hope that Guild can come through and beat Fearless Cheetahs so they get that spot because I think the way they played this season, they deserve to be in the finals. But yeah,
Yeah. I don't want to rain on your parade, so I'm not going to say too much. But the result against Pigeons spoke, I think, volumes as to their actual level. I do think it's an anomaly that they went 3-2 rather than 2-3. Uh, I'm really not
it might be.
that sold on them, but yeah, I mean, sure. If it does end up that way, if they win against Fearless Cheetahs, then fair enough. That's enough blips to make a pattern, and maybe they are just better than I thought. But no, I do think Fearless Cheetahs should be clearly the better team. But you never know.
Mm,
Fearless Cheetahs did drop a lot of maps. Like, they didn't win a single series 2-0. So it could be that they're primed to be upset because they do play a more
mm.
volatile style. So it could be. It could be. But yeah, there's also other parts of the world. Let's just briefly touch on them. I know, guys, it's fine. We're not going to spend too much time talking about things that aren't European, but okay, North America. Yep, hold it in. No one throw up. North America also had their season, and you'll be shocked to find out. This will be amazing to all of you. FlyQuest Red made it through the Americas section of Impact. As shocking as Pigeons coming out of EU, FlyQuest Red made it out of NA. It's always a surprise to me that they managed to keep it up. But yeah, they stomped their way through. Shimmer were the other team that joined them. And now Shimmer may have a couple names you're familiar with if you've followed a lot of women's CS, but mostly Mads. You'll know Mads from some other teams. If you've been following Tej, she was on FlyQuest Red. So she was on that big team. But aside from that, no, yeah, it was a pretty uneventful season from what I saw. I obviously couldn't watch much of it because it's on NA time and it was Impact League games. It's not great coverage. I didn't see much of it. I just know that there's one team guaranteed to come through every damn time. And it's the team who went and signed the Oceanic best player for their team.
Yeah.
And even though they were stomping already, they were like, we need an even better player to come in. We need to be even more head and shoulders above NA. But everyone in that specific stage should be celebrated. And well played to all of them, even though you got stomped and never stood a chance. South America, Fluxo Demons came out, and now South America just feels like Fluxo Demons versus Furia FE. So, good. One of them came through, unsurprisingly. It's Fluxo Demons. Again, nothing to report from my side of things on the level of play, but this is the team with Youngher, Julian, Goddess. If you've followed women's CS, you'll have already known this, but some people, drift in and out. You know what I mean? Like, some people don't watch much Tier 2 CS. They occasionally see a match. I think the women's team might be a bit the same. So those are the names you might recognize. Out of Asia, HSGFE came out. Again, unsurprising. With Olga, of course, as their best player. Since they tried to form that sort of weird idea for a super team. The problem is with the Asian one, though, there's not even a HLTV page for their main online group stage. You'll just find, like, the final playoff game to decide who qualifies, and there's nothing else. So maybe there just isn't much of a
they call it an open qualifier, and I think that's genuinely what it is.
It's an open quali. Oh,
they
wow.
call it that on HLTV, and I think that's actually what it is. Yeah, it's just a ladder.
Wow.
According to Liquipedia, 5 teams played in the qualifier.
Yeah, so not much of a women's scene in Southeast Asia, Asia Pacific, whatever it actually ends up being.
Yeah,
unfortunate, but yeah, I mean, HSGFE, to be honest, are a good team, so it's not like it's a wasted spot, right? Because HSGFE play a decent game. So we'll see how it goes. Just a bit odd to look at that.
I just checked the FACEIT bracket. It is 5 teams. 5 teams showed up. I could name all of them. Yeah, no, yeah.
Yeah, but like the last Impact Finals, they did beat FlyQuest Red and gave us the famous quote, the famous breakdown on the desk. And yeah, I mean, that's one of the few things people have ever seen from the Impact League. So HSGFE partly responsible after they absolutely stomped FlyQuest Red with their superstar, not Ziwu, Xiaowu, which is always amusing to me because I always remember the Ziwu meme and I see her name like, oh, it's like the joke, but real.
Yeah. They also took the map off, the first team to take a map on LAN of Enigma Galaxy last year. They were the first ever.
So in that best of 3, yeah.
Yeah.
So
but
definitely not a wasted slot.
Yeah. Definitely not. But yeah, we have finals. It's going to run parallel to IEM Dallas, right? It's going to be that thing.
Yeah, so they're not going to do great in terms of viewership, but hey, there's no Brazilian teams playing. Gaules might go watch it. Again, it depends, because there's only one Brazilian team. They'd have to go deep. No offense to Fluxo Demons, but I don't really see them as a big competitor. I mean, if they get lucky in their draw and they can face Let Her Cook and Shimmer in their group, then probably they got a chance. But if they're playing HSG and Bigger Keeper, for example, as the 2 teams they need to finish above to go through the playoffs, they're going home in groups, man. They're going home in groups. I don't see it happening. So that's something to keep an eye on. Going to be a big event. If Dallas is really that boring, I will be watching the women's event. So then make it fun, or I'm not watching. Pretty simple. That's Impact League Season 5, so everyone's now up to date. Up next, we've got a Quack special. That's not the right article. That's not the right graphic. Ignore that, everyone. That's also not the right article. Damn, I shouldn't have rearranged this at the last second. Here we go.
Yeah.
The Get Rio disaster. That's what I've named it. Quack. Let me know what happened, because I honestly barely kept track of this. I saw the scores of like Metasport losing, and I was like, oh, that's a shame. Stand in, though. And that's about it. So, what happened?
Just briefly to talk, we talked about this event last week slightly. It was about to happen. Land debut for Medisport. They had to play with the stand-in. Didn't have a lot of prac. That's not actually what this disaster is going to be about. But I do just want to say I did see someone call them onliners on Twitter, and I was like, that's not even a take. Of course they're onliners. Like they have never played international LAN, and this is the first time they're doing it. Of course they're onliners. Like that's not even a take to say they're onliners at that point. They played with the stand-in, almost no prac, traveled halfway across the world for the first time in their life. Yeah, they're onliners, so that's not even a take. Don't bother. I'm fine with them coming out in last place. They played a very, very, very good game regardless.
Yeah,
Even
didn't they
with the
lose like
stand-in,
every
they
game
played.
really close?
Yeah, and that was one of the things that Plopsky and Jacquinho said. It was like nerves. All of the games were super close. It was 13-11 against Imperial. With they had a pretty big lead. I think they had a 9-3 half, and then they lose it on the City side. And it was the same thing against Furia on the final map. They played 4 overtimes in total in this series, a 3-mapper. On the final map, they also had a 9-3 half on Inferno, but they choked the City side, and that's what they said. Like our City side wasn't good enough because we just, we didn't know what to do. We lost a lot of information. We had to take a lot of gambles and stuff, and it was nerves as well. Also played 2 Brazilian teams, and the home crowd, like, yeah, there was a crowd. You didn't see it on the broadcast a lot, but there was a crowd. And yeah, it was just, yeah. But anyway, the point of the headline with the disaster is about the event itself, because this has been one of those hilariously horrible, horrible run events that I'm just going to talk about. So we've already touched on the things that happened a couple of weeks ago. It was when Parisi dropped their team, and then Get Rio took the opportunity to kick the lineup that were invited out to invite a Brazilian team. Which was just a strange situation. It's rare that, I mean, it's rare when you have a tournament invite. It's rare that the TO removes your invite once you leave your current org. I mean, normally it's tied to the, anyway, that was the whole thing. So that happened. The team didn't even know they lost the invite until it was posted on Twitter, probably publicly, which is another thing. But everything started on day one when we had 2 hours of delays for the first game. And this is hilarious. It was because of a printer. Because the teams, obviously, as is normal these days, they want to print their tactics out on paper. And they were like, they had been told, yeah, we have a printer you can use. And then when they tried to use it, it was like tied to the Wi-Fi, and it was dog shit. And it took 2 hours to resolve. And OG almost were like, no, we're not playing. We're forfeiting the game if we can't do this. So like, oh man, like yeah, it was. I'll see if I can find it. Yeah, so they had a printer tied up to Wi-Fi, which didn't work because the Wi-Fi in the arena was worthless. And yeah, it was just weird as hell. Weird as hell. So we had 2 hours of delay to start, which meant that one of the best of ones between Pain and MIBR in the upper semis had to be postponed for the next day. So the day after that, we had a lot of games. First game of the day, Medisport versus Furia. That series was also delayed by almost an hour, and in the end, from the scheduled start time to the end of the series was almost 5 hours. This entire series, which might be the longest series we've had in CS2 so far in terms of time.
Impressive, yeah,
Pro-
with the new
yeah,
system, yeah.
yeah. And then Pain and MIBR played their game, and then Furia lost. And then came another issue, which was the lack of practice rooms. There were 12 teams at the venue because there were 8 male teams, and slightly undercovered, there were also 4 women's teams who were there to play a cup at the same time, some sort of cup event. But they had only 4 practice rooms in the venue. So how do you do this? Well, the answer is you don't. One of the and this was another thing related to Impact. MIBR, their female team, had a chance at going through to playoffs in. They had a mathematical chance, I think, to go through to playoffs in the Impact League. So they only came to the cup event in Rio. They only accepted the invite because they had been told and confirmed multiple times you will have access to a practice room where you can prepare and play your Impact game. So after this Medisport game, suddenly, the journalists from Dust 2 Brazil, they find, oh, why are Furia sitting on the floor backstage preparing their tactics? And then, they go over and they ask some people, oh, shit, all of the 4 practice rooms are in use right now because Pain and MIBR, they had some other game in the Esports World Cup qualifier, so they got to use the practice rooms to do that stuff. And then one other team was also, I think Imperial was also preparing for some game doing practice. And MIBR Female, who had been promised the practice room, were using the practice room to prepare for their Impact game. So then after a while, the tournament organizer comes in and say, "Hey, MIBR Female, you have to leave. Furia have to use this prac room to prac before their game against MIBR." So they had to forfeit their Impact game.
What?
A shame. In the end, it doesn't matter because I think the team that also would have had to lose, they actually won, so it didn't matter. They didn't go through, but
Still.
yeah, they had to forfeit an Impact game despite being promised you will have a practice room to use for this, but because there were only 4, that was the deal. Anyway, MIBR and Furia series plays out, Furia lose. And then I think the final game of the day was Imperial against Pain. It ended up being a 3-mapper, which was still on day 2. It started at 1 a.m. local time.
Bloody hell.
Yeah, and it was a 3-mapper. It didn't end until past 4 a.m. local time, which is past 9 a.m. Swedish time. I could have watched the Medisport Furia game, which was the start of day 2, go through my whole evening, go to bed, wake up at a reasonable hour, and see the end of the final day 2 series, despite Brazil only being 5 hours away from me. Like, the sheer amount of delays. When this game ended, we were up to 19 hours the day two of the event had lasted. 19 fucking hours of Counter-Strike. That was what was going on in Brazil.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a huge like organizational failure. And I don't even know how the third day went. I think they only had 2 games, so I guess that was fine. Yeah, in the end, Pain went down to the lower bracket because they lost against Imperial in that very, very, very late game. Beat MABR, went to the final, and then actually won the game in a revenge match against Imperial. So, well done to them. But holy fuck. I mean, name how many things can go wrong. Oh, there were huge problems with coverage as well. If you didn't see this game, that's not your fault. I think the Swedish broadcast, which I normally watch, they on the first day they received a clean feed like for the stream and everything. It was fine. It was fine. It was just delayed, but like they got a clean feed. They could cast over it. On day 2, they didn't get a feed until the first half was over. So before then, they just watched the Brazilian broadcast with like the casters in the background. And on top of that, the Brazilian broadcast for the entire first half had like the in-game sound delayed by like 5 seconds. Like what is even going on? Like who runs this event? Who runs it? Like I mean, anytime we have like newer TOs coming in, like someone who isn't ESL or Blast or even Starlight or PGL, there's always like teething issues with trying to break out into the tournament organization space. But this
Yeah.
was so ass. Like, hire someone better. Who did you hire? Your nephew? Like, just someone has to run the event. I mean, yeah, it was just horribly, horribly run event, which ended up being that was the most eventful part of the event, really. All the struggles. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't the first Get esports event, is it?
No.
Like
The last
Global
one was run
Esports
by
Tour.
Starladder 2 years ago. But yeah.
So they
This
clearly
time it was
changed
run
things
by
up,
the
but
Brazilian Federation, yeah.
it went terribly. Okay, great.
Yeah, went terribly.
I don't know. The first thing I found out about this event is just they took every opportunity they could to get Brazilian teams involved.
Yep.
Just like, okay, fair enough.
I mean,
it's an
it's an invitational event. Of course, you can do that, but like, why invite Prezi in the first place then? If you would just
seems like a weird invite. But then I've looked at the galleries, and like, the stadium's not full, and it's not even that big. How have you managed that? It's Brazil. Like, where did they actually host this? Like, what city? It says Rio. Okay,
Rio de Janeiro.
It's in Rio. How did you manage to not sell out in Rio?
It wasn't a particularly big venue, I think.
It's a mega city. Am I going crazy?
No,
6.74 million. How do you manage to not sell out? What were the prices? That must be another gaffe they've had. Is they've fucked up the promotion and pricing, or because of all the tech issues, no one showed up on day 3. So I'm not even looking at like day 1 pictures. I'm looking at day 3. Like day 3 pictures, I mean, look, it looks deserted.
Day 1 had 2-hour delays. So like, are you gonna go there then? I mean, it's their football stadium, but which is called Maracana. I don't
The
know how to speak
Maracanã.
Portuguese. Maracana, yes.
It's a very
Maracana.
famous football stadium, yes, that holds the record for capacity at a football game of over 100,000. But
Yeah.
it's clearly not set up to hold that many stadium fans at this point because they're clearly using like just 1/3 of it, maybe at most, if that is the Maracanã.
Yep.
But how is there so few people there? This looks like a WNBA game, boys. Like, what have you done? How have you managed to fuck this up?
Yeah, I do wonder, like, about the pre-C invite thing. How, like, okay, so you were happy inviting them when they were part of pre-C and this was the team. It was like the 5-man squad. But then as soon as the pre-C brand isn't going to be there anymore,
Oh,
you remove the
the
invite. So, like,
massive Prezi brand, yes.
yeah. Do you really care about pre-Z? What does that word mean to anyone? Like, do you really care about pre-Z being there or not? It's like a Danish power company, like electricity. That's what they do.
Oh, I
And
didn't even know that.
yeah, that's what their parent company is, which is also bankrupt now, and that's why they dropped the team. Um, so yeah, it's a
Okay.
failing electricity company. Did you really want their brand at the event so badly you had to remove the players? But yeah, it's weird how they don't feel that. Um, but yeah,
No, that's
fine, I guess.
it's a weird event. It's just a really weird event because that should
Yeah,
sell out. I mean, who's missing
no one,
in
no
Brazil?
one's missing. I
Like, I feel
think they
like
got
every
everyone.
single team that you could want for a Brazilian event is in attendance, so it should be packed to the rafters. Just because Furia finished 5th, 6th, is that why? Because Furia didn't make it to day 3? Is that why no one showed
I
up?
mean,
Like, come on, it's still Brazilians. Do your nationalism thing. Like, come on.
yeah, it was an all, but it was the top three was all Brazilian. Like the entire day 3 was all Brazilian teams and players. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, that's a mystery for another time, and well, one that they will want to address as
Yeah,
an esports org, I guess. They've got basically the same promoters as Impact League. They need to sort that out.
yeah,
They've clearly fucked that up. So yeah, a massive disaster from what you've described. Not an
Mm.
event I was able to follow thanks to timings and delays and a lack of will, really. Because who wants to watch
Mm.
Pain MABR at 4 in the morning? No one. But no, what a mess. Hopefully, the next Get event can be done properly. Because as much as I rip on them, I do want more orgs in the space. And it was, remember we were celebrating last week the great news of the esports orgs like coming back, hosting new events. It'd be cool to see like this Get brand do more, but if they're gonna fuck it up this badly every time, maybe less is more. Maybe
Yeah.
we pass on that. But yeah, let's move on to the Eternal Shuffle because it's been a busy week for these sorts of events, but it's not actually been that busy for the Eternal Shuffle. Like, it hasn't actually been that much going down. There's just a couple moves really we missed that most people would have considered last week's moves, but they happened like Monday. So it's been a whole thing. Biggest one, of course, being Virtus Pro signing Electronic. I made myself very clear on Twitter and during the episode of the Double Swing released Thursday about how I considered this team. It's a super team, pure and simple. They've taken a roster that functions, has stars, has supportive pieces, has a good IGL, and taken the one thing that maybe wasn't perfect and added a superstar. That's a super team. I don't care what definition you're using, random people online. Bicker about it in the comments if you want. I like the engagement. But for me, it's a super team. It's Electronic trying again after the Cloud9 disaster, but he doesn't have the weaknesses of that Cloud9 roster, which is to say, not so consistent slash respected IGL. He's got an AWPer here, and, well, he's got a roster that already knows it can function. We've not changed up a whole lot. It's just one player coming in. So this is a super team for me. They should be one of the 3 best teams in the world very soon. 3 or 4 best teams. They are at that level on paper.
Yeah. I think I'm gonna have to verify this, but I think it was Bobski who said that a lot of most people probably don't realize that Mir actually had, like, people who just look at the stats sheet like me would have probably thought that Mir was playing more supportive roles and he was doing all right in that. He was playing like the best roles everywhere. He was playing like short on Mirage, and like he was playing these. He's actually quite heavily underperforming in his positions. Um, and I did check this out. Electronic actually plays a lot of the same spots on a lot of the same maps. It's like almost 1 for 1, and it's just better. So it's a great idea for a replacement. So yeah, It's
Pretty
just a good
solid
move. It's just
move.
a good move. Like this team is already really dangerous, and now they've got a much, much, much better player in there. And it's a gnarly rifle core. I think some people were worried about like the T side aggression for Electronic and Flit. How is that going to work out? But I think Electronic is also a flexible enough player where he can they can work around that.
Yeah, no. Electronic has played a bit of a variety of roles. He's played some spots more often than others, but in terms of his general approach to the game, he's been quite flexible before, and he's thrived in pretty much every like vaguely positional archetype, like closing, opening, lurking. Like he's done a lot of different things to a certain extent, and he's always done them very well. So I'm not worried about his fit. It should be a pretty comfortable transition for him. And the other part of things that changed is Furia cutting Art and Gary. And although initially you might rejoice, a lot of the things that have come out since then, mostly made public by Art during a live stream, if they are true, which I assume, I mean, crap, unless he's writing the most ridiculous fan fiction, they are, it's a bit of a weird situation and a bit of a toxic environment to be a part of, this Furia org. And it's not even his fault. Like, as much as we have in the past roasted Art for his refusal to budge from his style, from his own shortcomings as a leader, from his individual performances, if I was playing for this org and they were doing what he's claimed, I'd have problems. So the things that have been intimated are stuff like not being allowed to see family or partners for extended periods of time. I'm talking months. Basically, not being allowed to be in contact with them. That's ridiculous.
One thing there. I think when Dust2 US published that story, he actually commented below it, and he was like, "Well, this is like slight mistranslation. I didn't mean that the Furia org held me from it. It was more that I couldn't because of the pandemic, and the org decided we were gonna go hard on CS at that time and just not get sick."
Oh, so that's a terrible,
But
terrible translation.
slightly terrible, but like I mean, it was still the org's decision, I think, because I think they played in Europe for a long time
They
at the
did,
start of
yeah.
the pandemic. Yeah, so I think that's what he sort of meant by that was like, well,
Okay.
yeah, the org made this decision, but we were also kind of on board with it because it was like we didn't want to get sick, we wanted to play CS.
Okay, so I don't want to get too specific then, if there's going to be a lot of mistranslations in what I've read. But the other one that was intimated was forced veganism, which is just poisoning people. So, not a great team to be a part of. Honestly, though, if the part that's more CS relevant is just that the org seems to be taking a lot of initiative and a lot of the power out of the players' hands in terms of roster moves and roster construction. Well, you get away with this one, I guess, Art and Gary, because fuck me, the roster moves have been dreadful. And if that wasn't your choice, fair enough. Because unless, well, the one move a lot of people have wished for is just cutting yourself, Art. But aside from that, the signings have been questionable. And fair enough, if you're not controlling that, it is the org's fault. Still begs the question, though, why are you so shit at calling? And why have you never changed your style? But if the org is the responsible for things like the Fallen move, if it's the org's fault that drop ends up getting cut, like things like that make no sense to me personally, then yeah, fair enough.
Yeah,
the org's got a lot to answer for. But I'm not going to speak out too much on the other stuff because of potential mistranslations. But basically, look into it. If you speak Portuguese, go watch his live stream. I'm sure there's clips or full VOD, I'm hoping, lying about that you can take a look at, where he does expose a lot of stuff about how things were handled behind the scenes that probably takes some of the blame we've all been piling on his shoulders away from him, because everyone's been very happy to just wreck Art over the last 4 years, probably at this point. And maybe it wasn't all his fault. Not quite all his fault.
I think the Dust2 US article on this, if you don't speak Portuguese, I think that is fine because he does speak Portuguese fluently as well. Like it's fine. What I think was the slight misattribution of the I wasn't allowed to see my family thing. I think that was more of what he said. Like he said, I wasn't allowed to see my family, and of course that's rough. But like it was more, perhaps by some people, it was more interpreted as the Furia org forbade him from seeing them, which is a different thing. But yeah, there was a lot of things. There was a couple of things about like roster moves that I think Furia were 100% like top down controlling the team entirely. Because I remember someone said somewhere, I think Art said somewhere that the team were like at one point really interested in Dumao as, I'm guessing, a Henny replacement. And like they passed this on to the org, and then the org, it just didn't happen. And then years later, when he actually asked Duma, why didn't you join Furia, he was like, I had no fucking idea you guys were ever interested in me. Like they never spoke to me. So and then instead they got Junior. And I guess like all of these moves, like you start to look at this. I remember that this was actually talked about even when it happened. They talked about why Henny left the team, and when it happened, I remember the story was that he was like, oh, he was just out partying all the time, and he just didn't show up for practice, and he was like, yeah, just really not taking the team seriously because he was like a party guy. And I was, but then now when Art talks about it, it's more like, no, the team didn't allow us to go for one beer on Friday if we had a game on Monday, and so eventually Henny just didn't agree with that, and he got kicked for it. And then, so like they
Well, the
were,
articles,
it's
the conversation at the time was Henny leaves of his own volition to go play with his brother. That was, and the intimation was
that
that
as well.
he wanted to go play with his brother. That's why he chose to leave. It was apparently very different.
Yeah, there was also the story at the time of like, oh, he didn't show up for practice, because I distinctly remember this. I think it came out a couple of months later that this was the talk of it. But now when Art talks about it, it's more like the org had very unrealistic expectations, and Henny was very much within the realm of like normal reason. So they cut him out, and then yeah, it's it's a strange move. But yeah, I recommend reading the Dust 2 US article on this. I'll see what it's called. I spent it. Yeah, it's the one with the quote. April 7th.
Just search
April
Dust to
17th.
US art. I found it
Yeah,
immediately. It's the top article.
yeah, April 17th.
Yeah, and
I've just found
there's
this.
links to like clips from the VOD and stuff. So you'll be able to, if you speak
Yeah,
Portuguese, see it original, untainted,
yeah,
as it were.
yeah. But
Definitely go look
Gonçalo
at it.
does speak Portuguese as well, so you can trust it. I did just see the subheading under the image that says Art had a lot to say, which is true. Yeah.
But yeah, some of that
Anyway,
stuff is like, yeah, borderline. Honestly, forcing your team to go vegan in the hopes it's going to make them better at Counter Strike. That's just so stupid and pretty abusive. So I would be willing to add Furia to the shit list of orgs to call cunts at every given moment. And we're 42 minutes in, so I won't get demonetized for that one. Just why? Why would you do this to people? Akari comes out of this looking like an absolute dickhead.
Yep.
If he is, then good. Next, we have an article from Nero that came out this morning. No, that's not this part. We're actually doing Esports World Cup first. We'll get to that later, because that's such personal, petty little side thing that's just there for my own humour. Let's put it that way. It's just to humour me. But we got the Esports World Cup decided. There we go. And that's this topic, right? Yes, here we go. M80 made it through the NA qualifier. That was the big headline this morning, or yesterday. And I've put it very elegantly in the topics. M80 meat slapped Liquid, which was hilarious considering they actually lost the upper bracket game in fairly close fashion. Went down to the lower bracket, crushed whichever NA team was sat there, and then smacked them in the decider game 2-0, with Malbs MD having an absolutely insane game. He had an insane run just throughout the entire quali, but that final match was disrespectfully good. And yeah, carries them to a 13-11, 13-2 victory over Team Liquid, who, man, it sucks having to be in a region where you definitely should be the best or second best team, but can't quite get the ranking points to prove it. So you can't get direct invites to anything because Complexity keep getting them, despite not performing really anymore. And then you have to play qualifiers against teams like this one. It must really suck to be on Team Liquid right now. Of course, you have you have a mouse and keyboard. You could not get shit on with Malbs MD giving you 23 and 8 over a map of Mirage. But you haven't been able to, and it's kind of alarming that they can't make it out of the online stage. This reminds me of the NIP finally falling out of Legend status, having to go through online qualifiers and never making it back for a while with the old Legends roster. Never being able to really qualify for events and relying purely on invites to the other peripheral stuff. It's that kind of vibe, like the old men who are like, this isn't LAN, this is not fair, we need LAN to play good Counter-Strike. Like, no guys, you can play online like everyone else. Nope, they got dumpstered every time. So this kind of feels like the rut Liquid are stuck in. They just can't seem to qualify for stuff or make it out the NA region, despite on paper they being more than equipped to do so. I just wasn't able to catch this game. It started at 2:30 a.m. What do I look like? I have a life. But hey, something's going wrong here, and it's more than just having to play online CS, surely.
Yeah, it's interesting looking at the stats for the individual stats for the Liquid lineup and comparing LAN to online. Let me see here. LAN. So I'm just looking at the stats sheet. They are everyone is significantly better online than they are on LAN statistically, but then they
Yeah,
just
how many
can't
maps they played on LAN though?
win games. 25. So, but yeah, there's a problem here. I think with the level of transparency we have into Liquid as a team right now, because they're doing like these vlogs and they're doing all of this, and they're doing like YouTube stuff sometimes, and it's gonna be. I think at this point, this Liquid team is eventually gonna be a very interesting case study into like what went wrong with this team in that case, because they're doing quite a bit, and like I can't even say what's wrong. I mean, I think maybe might need some more time. They just still make playoffs in Chengdu, so like it's as far as being a good or bad team, I think they're a good team. But yeah, I think one of their big headaches right now is they need to figure this out, and they need to do it pretty fast because I mean, in what is it, like half a year? It's gonna be no more invites, even with partner status. Slightly more than half a year.
Yeah.
Um, there's gonna be no more EPL invites or Dallas invites or fall groups invites. You're gonna have to qualify for everything, and if you don't, you're gonna drown in the rankings. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see if they can work that out. But M80, well played, I guess. I also didn't watch this game at 2:30. I was just going to bed, but
I think it's
there's
3:30 for you, European time.
oh yeah,
So
then I was sleeping soundly then. But yeah, there's this team. It's strange, but I think yeah, bringing in Sin really did fix a lot of the problems. I think. Um, yeah, he's played a good game, I suppose. Haven't watched them. I mean, North American CS.
well,
It's
their biggest problem was not having a fifth player.
yeah,
Just to back up, like, it's when they had Manx, they were able to play like this. It's just them they lost Manx to, I guess, emotional fatigue is one way of thinking about it, and he leaves.
yeah,
They then play with Def as a stand-in, who didn't actually play that poorly, but you know, it's still a stand-in. And
yeah.
now, yeah,
He
they got
hadn't
Sin
played the
back in,
game
and
for like
it's
5 years.
functioning. So, congrats to M80. We'll see them at the Esports World Cup in Riyadh. I
Riyadh,
believe the
middle
actual
of
event is
June, July.
in July. Yeah, so Riyadh,
Yeah.
July. They'll be joining the rest of the esports world. We've got the top 6 teams in the world currently actually attending. So it's going to be a big event. That's going to be a really big event.
Yeah.
We'll see if they manage the
What's a
execution.
Let's see. So assuming this is so weird because we have 15 teams. What is this? Like what is this?
I'm not sure what's
So
going on there.
I'm guessing we're gonna have 3 groups of 5 somehow.
Opening
And then like
stage, single elim, best of 3, winner advances to playoffs. Losers go
single
to last
elimination
chance,
best of 3. So it's just a
single
bracket.
elim BO1.
Yeah, but it doesn't say how many
No,
groups
there's a
there are.
group. There's an opening stage, which is essentially like a group stage, then a last chance, then a playoff single elim BO3. I don't understand the format.
It doesn't say anything about the groups, but single elimination bracket. So it's obviously a bracket, and then a last chance like play-in, which is also a single elimination, best of 1 single elimination bracket. But how the fuck do you put
Yeah.
15 bracket? I mean,
Maybe one team gets no one team, like 3 teams get a bye. No, that still makes a weird bracket.
do you just have fight? No, I have no idea how this works.
No, one team gets a bye, then you can make a full bracket. Yeah.
Um,
So number 1 seed comes in, gets a bye to the second round of the stage, but
yeah.
3 single elim winners advance to playoffs. Winners. So everyone who wins their first game goes straight to playoffs.
Oh,
what is
I might
this?
have it. I might have it. Yeah. Okay. So the top 5 seeds might get like a straight. They get a bye. So you pair them up 3
The
and
top
3.
5
So
seeds.
you get 5 groups of 3, and in each the 5 top seeds get a bye to the next round, and then the others play the first game. So then you get 5 playoff spots just from them winning 1 game. the top 5 seeds, they just win the one game and then they make the playoffs. And then the losers go down into the play-in bracket where they play for one more spot, and then you have a 16 playoff. Could that be it?
So let me get this clear. The top 5 seeds
I'm just guessing.
just go straight through without playing a game, and then everyone else.
No, they play a game. They play a game. So I'm thinking, fuck, I'll have to draw this up. I'm thinking you go. I don't have a pen. I'm thinking you go. Yeah, you won't see this anyway. I'm thinking you go. The bottom 10 seeds, they play against each other for a chance to play against one of the top 5 seeds. And then that game is the direct qualifier for playoffs. All of the losers go down into a play-in bracket where all 10 of the losers, regardless of seed, play a single elimination bracket for one spot or something. Or I don't fucking know. That's going to be interesting.
10 teams single in bracket for one spot. No, this makes no sense. Nothing you've described makes any sense. So we'll see what they're.
Who's running this? Get.
We'll find out. It's the Esports World Cup, so it's the Saudi crown. So come all.
Yeah, let's see how this works.
But
maybe they just haven't announced that the wild card 16th team is going to be like whoever are the best. It's going to be Al Nasser entering esports, buying up Simple and 4 players you've never heard of.
Honestly, I'm there for it. I'm there for that script.
That would be awesome. That would be awesome.
Ridiculous. Like, that'd be so unnecessarily hyped up as well. Do it. That's actually genius. If they do that, I'll give them full kudos. Like, just randomly pull out one of the Saudi Arabian League football teams that no one gives a shit about, except for the fact that a big name's on it. Because no one cares about your football league, mate. It's just a fact. Pull one of them out with simple +4. And I'm talking random motherfuckers. I'm talking, like, the Saudi prince himself. Like, himself walks down, like, full dressed up, not even looking like a nerd, not even wearing a jersey, like, wearing royal attire. And, like, his headset has, like, a special gold crown on it. That would be so pimping. It'd be pointless, but it might be the most watched clip on Twitch of all time. Of him, like, walking on stage with his retainers and everything, and bodyguards, just to sit down and play a game of Counter-Strike with a crown headset. That'd be so dope. But so stupid. Do it. Actually do it. But I'm sure there's something more to be revealed about this, because it's such a dumb-looking event right now with 15 teams. And the actual format given in the HLTV page makes no sense. So we'll have to find out what's actually going to happen soon. But yeah, that's the Esports World Cup teams decided. The other thing is Sashi made it through EU, which is a bit disappointing, because I know they're going to do squat when they actually get to the event, because I've seen this happen a dozen times with these kinds of players. There's like 10 Danish players who can like swap around and make these mixed teams. Not mixed teams, make these teams that stick together, do pretty well in Tier 2, qualify for an event every now and then, and upset a team I actually think would do something, and then do nothing. Here we are. So, unfortunate. They played well. Cabby had himself a great series to get through. I'm just not a big believer in the roster. Prospects of the week. It's been a week. So I was about to say it's been a while. It's been a week. I've picked a player who is 21 and attending Impact Finals. It's Viku. I believe that's how it's pronounced, or Vichu, I think I've heard once, but I'm not sure how right that is. Viku had a pretty great week. Like, not the biggest profile games, obviously, playing in the Impact League, but it was an important series of games for the Na'Vi Javelins to actually get through. Most importantly versus VP Angels, who are actually a tougher team to beat in this arena, where she dropped the 44 on them in 2 maps. You know, the classic big performance. She is the AWPer for this roster, so she's expected to perform, but yeah, she delivered all season long. Had herself a great week. And we'll be seeing her at the Impact League Finals. Hopefully, I say hopefully, I'm not wishing for any particular team to win, but it'd be nice to see them have an underdog run, especially one that could be built up using narratives and a hype video, potentially, you know, some promotional material maybe. If they could go on and actually have an upset run and finally convert that best-of-3 win over the former Enigma Galaxy core, now Pigeons roster, I think that'd be really cool. So Viku is a player to watch if that ever does come true. Just on a side note, another player to watch on that team if they do have a chance is actually, what's her name? Lena. That's about I always forget it. I always remember the double eyes, but never remember what surrounds it. Lena was really like impactful the last time they played. That was like one of their key round winners, despite not typically being like a star player. So keep an eye out for that. But Viku, Beast on the AWP, which is probably the thing you'll see the most of in the Impact League, is like really impactful AWPers. She's one of them, and yeah, keep an eye out. Up and coming star.
Yeah, serial silver medalist is this team.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Could be 3 in a row for Impact League finals this
Well,
season,
they
but
did win the European Pro League. That was the one thing they won this week. Was they beat Pigeons in the European Pro League female final. So
oh yeah,
we've got something to work with. Cough. ESL.
yeah.
Cough.
If there's ever a chance for them to win, it's gonna be this time, and
Yeah.
that's gonna be pretty cool if they do. But
Mm.
yeah, cool team. Uh, I haven't watched. I hardly watched them. This is probably out of all of the European Impact teams, this is probably the one I've watched the least, just because they always end up like in the other group to the Swedes, so the other always end up like not being here. But they're a solid team, and I think as much as Zas joining Pigeons is a good move, firepower wise, they also removed their in-game leader in the process, which is also something that can really destabilize a team in that way. Meanwhile, Navi Javelins are just sort of soldiering on with the same lineup, and it could definitely work out for them. So yeah, if they have a chance to do it, it's going to be now. And I mean, for the sake of rooting for an underdog, I hope they do it. But yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. Who have you taken this week?
I've taken Fuzi. There hasn't really been a player to watch too much of for me this week, because a lot of it has been in like other regions. It's always been in America or in Asia or whatever. But Fuzi has been back on a Chinese team. But they with a Middle Eastern core, which meant that they could play the Middle Eastern Esports World Cup qualifier. And well, yeah, Fuzi together with Kirby played with someone who's slowly becoming more and more of a favorite of me, which is Mini. And Issa and Vital on GG How, and actually made it through the Esports World Cup qualifier. So they're going to be there. I did. It's not confirmed if this is the actual lineup GG How are going to play the World Cup with, or at least Fuzi himself didn't know when he qualified. He's just a stand-in. So, but I do hope that he gets to actually play this event, because that would be great. And he played a great qualifier to make it there. Obviously not the best opposition, but like anytime he outperformed his entire team, he outperformed everyone in the event. Yeah, there's still respectable players here. I think even outside GGG How, Onyx Ravens, obviously not like a notable team in terms of the international scene, but like they have players whose names I actually sort of recognize as sort of mainstays of this region, which is, I mean, that's a good scalp to take in this region. But yeah, Fusi just really more and more playing for the sake of visibility, I think, and I do hope we see him back in Europe, or even in Sweden soon, because this guy is starting to become someone who definitely should be. He's been a person who should be in tier 1 for a long time, but he's more and more he should be in tier 1 at this point. So,
Yeah, he's been looking solid. I mean, he's putting up monster numbers against a lot of. Well, he's doing Farmers League stats type stuff. But look, when he played in EU, he showed potential, and it was disappointing that he never got the chance to show it on a better team. I mean, considering it was on the NIP Academy, we have our usual conversation to have in that sense. So we're not going to rehash old material, but yeah, it'll be cool to see how he plays at the World Cup. I mean, we always want to see him play when he's on these mixed teams, putting up numbers against real competition. So hopefully he is playing with them when it gets to it, because the guy is a solid little AWPer. I don't think he's like wonderful or that
he's
kind
not
of
the new
level.
Monesi, but like he's
I mean, I think
definitely,
Munacy's
we
even a tier
could
above
use new
that,
offers.
but he can definitely rival like a Brokey, a Torshi. In terms of performance at least. Not in terms of style, he's very different to those two, because those two are fairly unique. But he could definitely rival them. So I don't think that's ridiculous. But all right, finally, my little slice of heaven, my little statistical side note. So Nero releases an article this morning, and it's not really about Rating Plus, but it is. So for those of you who don't know, Rating Plus was a way of adjusting players' performance to like an average, so that you can actually get an idea of how they performed relative to their competition, no matter the year. So you could have Like you could compare directly a player's performance on their based on their rating in 2023 with a player in 2016 using a single number called Rating Plus, and it could be adjusted with positions. I did a very basic version of this a while ago, where I also used like just AWPers ratings versus ratings for regular riflers to see how much better these AWPs actually are, or if they're benefiting from having a massive advantage of using the big green and being set up for every frag. And we found out things like, well, I found out things, so I never published this, that Fallen, for example, this was in like 2022, I want to say 2022 or 2021, was playing not just average CS, because his HCV rating looked at average 1.00, but realistically he was one of the worst players in the world, as his rating plus standardizes where average is 100, was something like 88, which is horrendous, especially considering his weapon. He just wasn't playing up to level. And then you'll find out riflers like Nico, when they have like a 1.2 year, if you look at rating plus, compare it to like an AWPer's rating plus, he's actually pretty much on board with them. Like he's having a similarly impactful year relative to his position. Nero's gone the full 100 yards though. He's using positional data, tracked every single player's role on every single map, found out the average rating on every single like position that a player should be expected to have, compiled those, weighted an average based on how much they play each match. It's funny how he is able to weight based on map to map. So please, weighted nade stats, please. But back on track. Weighted all their ratings and then created like what their target rating should be based on all their positions and where they actually are, and shown us the differential. So it's a similar idea, executed very differently. And he's using those Tableau stats charts again. So there's that link as well in the article if you want to play around with it. But I definitely recommend it's a good read, and you'll find out some really interesting things. One link I did make is between his last article talking about basically IGLs taking up more rotator positions, and that impacts very directly this article, where rotators are usually higher fraggers, and you've got some riflers, some IGLs, some horrendous statistics as a consequence. Like Snappy is performing horribly relative to his positions. So is Alexi B. Glaive and Carrigan aren't as much rotators, but they are also below their positional expectations. But yeah, the shocking ones, the ones that are most impacted, the most important, I think, and the most interesting are those rotating IGLs who are playing it for the info, they're playing it so they can throw flashes. They are far below where you'd want. In all cases, except maybe like Apex. Everyone else is heavily on the struggle bus. So that's a really great read. I'd recommend it to everyone watching.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. This is really nice. This is really, really nice. So it's weighting, basically it's figuring out the target rating for each position, which is like the rating where you should be on average versus how the player is actually performing. And there's some, I mean, here we got to mention one player, Donk. He's playing one of the easiest positions and he's still overperforming what he's supposed to be doing, like quite so much.
That's something you'll notice is if your superstar player is a superstar, they will of course have a high target and exceed it, because that's what makes them the superstar.
And exceed it. Yeah. Because you do have someone like, what was the data range for this? Was this like this year so far?
I'm not sure, because for example, the players included is a bit odd because I can't find Mir on his tableau, even with the like range set to the maximum. But I can find like random players like Dilades and Kaze, so I'm not sure what this is based off of exactly.
Yeah. All right. But yeah, this is really interesting. I always like reading Nero articles because they always have very nice conclusions, and I feel like he's doing the thing that I've felt for the past 3 years that someone had to be doing. Someone with knowledge of statistics is to make. I think he himself is probably the driving force behind a lot of this, but he's starting to make a taxonomy of how to talk about Counter-Strike players that doesn't rely on the 5 basic roles that we've had since 2015, which just, let's be honest, flat out don't exist anymore and weren't that useful to begin with. I'm talking when you had a team and the team was an IGL, a support, an AWPer, an entry, and a lurker, and like, yeah, you can sort of use these to talk about Counter-Strike these days, but it doesn't really paint the full picture. And that's why we started using words as aggressive extremity and like you would have hard. I stole it from someone. I stole it from someone, definitely. But you started talking about these words. You started talking about like, well, this guy's a lurker, but not really like the others, and he's actually kind of unique. And there's a bunch of people who are like him, so he's not actually unique. We should probably have a word for this. We don't. You started differentiating between a normal entry, a hard entry, or whatever. Yada yada yada. All of these things. We have so many terms at this point, and that's just T side. I feel like what he's doing at this point is that he's starting to create a language that we can use to talk about CS players in a much more effective way. Like even in rather than now talking about openers, or rather than now talking about entries and lurkers, which is sort of like more of a specific kind, we have more like openers and closers, which is a better word for sort of the same thing, I think. You have space makers and pack players, and like these words have existed for a while, but I feel like he's putting them together in a very nice way. And this is another step in that direction, taking different spots. Like CT side is almost even harder to talk about because yes, you have anchor spots where you think that the target rating is going to be low. You expect your worst players to play certain anchor spots, but then you also have what this sort of highlights is that there are some anchor spots that are on some maps. You sort of feel like, well, maybe the A anchor spot is actually a pretty good spot to play on this particular map, and on this side, maybe the rotator spot is actually quite bad to play. And like before, these were just like concepts in our head, but this guy, he's actually put it together in a way that where yes, we can see that playing the A rotate on vertigo on average is one of the worst positions you can play on vertigo, and we can see that actually, yeah, it's an anchor position, but if you're playing, let me just find one of these. If you're playing on Mirage, then you're actually quite well off compared to if you're playing on Anubis. If you're playing the B anchor on those maps, so yeah, there's definitely going to be this. These are like tools that we can keep using. And he did a similar thing with the roles before, but like profiling players into different roles, basically. And yeah, that's great. It's great to see, and this is going to be a good read. I haven't read the full thing, but I'm definitely going to do this the moment we end this recording.
Yeah, I'm especially having fun just playing around with the actual Tableau page. So definitely think something to check out. Just thought I'd throw it in here at the end. But yeah, that's been the show. We've just crossed an hour and 7 minutes, so it's a good place to stop. Looking forward to the next week of Counter-Strike. Thank you all for tuning in. Let me know your comments, and yeah, sub for more. We'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.